into routes. That's part of the problem. He and I have talked about this. He wants 5 guys out into routes, so he'll take the hits. That's part of his story the first couple of years in the NFL, is that he wants to run that wide open kind of LSU offense. That's part of this. But I think that for me, the thing I've changed my mind in the last couple of years is the way you win in the NFL now is top level talent and then getting away with a bunch of other stuff. You can get away with this offensive line, I believe. The defense will be average. Dexter Lawrence fixing the disgraceful tackling with Brian Cook instead of Geno Stone. I think they're AFC contenders, guys.
I mean, I don't know how you can say you can get away with your offensive line being this way with top-end skill position talent when the Bengals haven't gotten away with it each of the last 3 years. They've been outside looking into the postseason, and Joe Burrow has been one of the most hit quarterbacks since he's come into the league. So much so that in 2 of the last 3 seasons, he's missed over a month a year being on IR with injuries. So I guess when it comes to how the Bengals are trying to navigate the deficiency up front, you find yourself in a position where you don't have a lot of good answers because, as Mike Tannenbaum says all the time, if you can't block them, you can't beat them. And too often Cincinnati has been in that posture, right? You had Eric O'Neal, a rookie pass rusher from Rutgers, beating Orlando Brown Jr. like a drum around the corner for a hit on Joe Burrow while his arm is extended. That's not the position that you want your quarterback in, whether it's regular season or preseason. And so that stuff has to get cleaned up. And I keep waiting on everybody in the Bengals organization to take it personal, not to allow their quarterbacks to be hit, especially number 9. And it hasn't happened yet. And as it lingers, you start to ask the question, will the entire organization ever feel that way and have that sense of urgency about protecting Joe Burrow?
Steve, you were literally what Kevin is talking about. You were literally the top of the top in terms of high-end talent at the wide receiver position. Kevin Clark just said, and figure out everything else. When everything else wasn't figured out, what happened to you as a wide receiver?
You get frustrated, right? It affects your numbers. It affects your ability to impact the game. And when it affects you to impact the game, that's where things start to go disarray. That's where the water cooler conversation started. The locker room clicky guys starts conversating and murmuring. So you want to go ahead and neutralize that immediately. You don't want to sit there and try to figure out, how do we keep masking a problem? You can't mask it, and you can't keep throwing Joe Burrow under the bus. He does not block. He doesn't. I don't care how gifted he is, you need to protect your players from your players. And that's just the issue that Cincinnati Bengals have.
31% pressure rate on Joe Burrow last year, basically league average. So I think the offensive line has been getting better the last couple of years. Let me ask you, Steve.
Hold on. You use the word I love to hear. I love it, especially at pro days. I love hearing this. When I'll ask a wide receivers coach, I'll say, hey, how's that wide out? They say, man, he's good. I say, how's his hands? And they say, he's getting better. Getting better? That is your
That's a great point.
That is your job. How about this? I got one for you.
Okay.
I'm a foodie guy.
Okay.
We're here in New York. Will you go to a restaurant where the first 3 or 4 times you've eaten, the meal has been terrible? So then the next time you go and say, well, you know, they screwed up my appetizer, but they sure getting better. They sure getting better. Hey, that salmonella only hit me at 5 in the morning instead of at 1 o'clock in the morning when it woke me up with that.
Okay.
So why are we giving the Bengals the beard award winner here? What are we doing
the
here?
best restaurants know what they are. If you're world famous ribs and you're putting out world famous ribs, world famous chicken wings out front, don't order the burger.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what you saying is good.
No,
it ain't good.
What are the Bengals world famous for then? If we're going to use this example, the Cincinnati Bengals are world famous for what positive?
They have the best 2 skill guys at the receiver position in football, and they've got a guy who can hit them every single time. If you're saying you got to figure something else out, I'd rather have that than the elite offensive. I'd rather have elite passing operation, if you had to choose, than an elite offensive line and a bad operation with the passing. That's what I would choose.
I just don't understand what that's worth in today's NFL, especially with the Cincinnati Bengals.
A month on unavailability to your quarterback.
Exactly, and not being in the playoffs 3 straight years.
Who in the AFC has both?
What do you mean, who has both?
In the AFC, who is the complete offense who has every single box check? Because in the NFC, I see it. In the AFC, I don't.
Well, listen, every team has warts in the NFL.
How about the Los Angeles Chargers? How about the Denver Broncos?
Okay, would you? But what I'm saying, we're talking about the Broncos here.
I'm going to answer the question before you ask me. Yes.
Okay.
I would rather have.
You'd rather have Bo Nix, Jalen Waddle, Cortland Sutton than the Bengals.
Bo Nix
Let me say it again for you very slowly. Yep.
Okay. I disagree on that particular one. And with the Chargers, they were so injured last year that I felt that, listen, we'll see what happens with the health. We have to say if in every Chargers conversation.
Sure.
So what happened with the Chargers? Why weren't the Chargers very good?
They got banged up on the offensive line.
But they got a quarterback who can.
They had a quarterback. They didn't have the receivers like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase.
They had a quarterback that could will them through anything.
No, I see where you're going with this, Kevin. And I guess my whole point is this. You're talking about you don't see it in the AFC, but you do see it in the NFC. Last time I checked, all 32 teams are working with the same salary cap. So you have the same constraints in terms of roster construction. Yep. And my point is, if the Philadelphia Eagles can do it around Jalen Hurts, if the Los Angeles Rams can do it around Matthew Stafford, if the Dallas Cowboys can do it around Dak Prescott, then the Cincinnati Bengals should be able to do it around Joe Burrow, and they've had enough time, they've had enough runway to figure it out, and they just haven't. And that's my issue with that. And sometimes, and Steve says this, you got to protect the player from himself. With Cincinnati, they should have protected Joe Burrow from himself when he was caping for his 2 wide receivers to be paid top of the market money a couple of off seasons ago. If you invest that in other areas of your team, i.e. the offensive line, then maybe, just maybe, you have a different result in terms of your quarterback's availability over the course of the last 3 seasons. The Cincinnati Bengals are 24th in spending on the offensive line. It's not a surprise that they're middle of the road when it comes to protecting Joe Burrow. We can't blame it all on scheme. Sometimes it's about the Jessies and Joes, not the X's and O's.
But you got to also, we can't keep blaming that they're not investing in the offensive line when they just haven't picked some good offensive linemen, because the guys that they have invested in, it hasn't been great. I think Orlando Brown Jr. was a good pick at first.
Okay.
And then you got him.
Well, you got him in free agency. And now you're kind of stuck with him because he's not at his best. Now, I know he wants to be at his best, and I think he's more disappointed in himself than anybody. So I'm not going to kick the man while he's down. But he has to play better, and you have to find some other guys, too, that can play. You can't tell me spending money is always the answer. No, you got to have quantity and quality. No, I agree with you. Spending money is not always the answer. But when you can't find the solve, throwing money at the problem is the next best thing. What I'm saying is the Cincinnati Bengals haven't been able to figure it out on their own, and they haven't thrown money at the problem.
Yes.
So at some point, you got to do something to change the outcome.
Correct.
They've changed the scheme, but now they've got to get the results, and so far we haven't gotten that. Now, only one game into the preseason.
But it doesn't look great.
It doesn't look great. It doesn't look great.
As they've had in years past. And even though you're going to say the preseason doesn't matter,
it does.
The same thing over and over again, it does. All right, it's time for a quick take.